Technically, it's on. Now it's on. Hi, everyone. Welcome. I was about to say, well, for those at home that don't know what we're going through, we are competing with one of the most amazing journalists slash influencers out there. So speaking at the same time and with aperitivos starting at 5, and then there's some of us crammed into a room wanting to discuss what's wrong with Eastern Europe. So thank you to those of you who bought into this. My name is Cristian Lupsa. I'm a Romanian journalist, and I'm the chair of the European Press Prize Preparatory Committee. Again, thank you for choosing us. Romanians and Moldovans were not used to being chosen in international settings, so your presence goes a long way to cure some of our abandonment issues. And in a way, this is partly what our panel is going to be about. Romania and Moldova, and we're not the only countries, at least in Europe, we're not in a war. We've not tilted into an autocracy yet. The oligarchy doesn't control the entire informational space yet. So what that means in the journalism landscape is that people look at us and say, well, you're kind of okay, right? And what we're going to talk about here is that kind of okay is a really fragile state. And during the recent presidential elections, both of our countries witnessed the rise of candidates fueled by networks of dubious social media accounts on platforms like Facebook and TikTok, many coordinated by shadowy companies. These efforts undermine trust both in the electoral process and then journalists ended up being caught in the crossfire between these misinformation campaigns and an already existing public skepticism about journalism and why it exists in our countries. Romania's presidential elections, for those that don't know, were canceled after the first round, and we're going again at it in May. Moldova's presidential election saw a slim win for the pro-EU candidate, but they're going again in October with parliamentary elections, so that process is still ongoing. And this is why we believe that at a time when these social media conspiracies and right-wing populism are surging everywhere, the lessons from Romania and Moldova can be urgent and instructive. And we have just the right people to talk to about how the media navigates this turbulent landscape in our countries and what maybe your countries can take away from it. So Victor Ilie, to my left, is a longtime investigative reporter who's now publishing in snoop.ro, a recent investigative startup that you should really check out. Victor has most recently investigated online marketing schemes that are fronts, a lot of them fronts for Russian propaganda. Victor has a 10-plus-year-old record of looking into corruption in healthcare, church affairs, the media, and the Tate brothers. So if you want a Tate brothers expert, he's one of them. Dan Duca, to my right, is the man you want to call if you want to run a leading digital news product. And Dan has been doing this for 20 years in Romania for many journalism brands, including the Ringier-owned Libertatea, which some of you might know about. And he's now doing this for Hotnews.ro, which is an almost 25-year-old digital publication, probably the first big digital news publisher in Romania. That is, with Dan and his colleagues' leadership, is now in a renewed phase of growth and relevance. And speaking of other pioneers, to my left, I'm thrilled to have with us Alina Radu, the co-founder and current CEO of Ziarul de Garda in Moldova. Ziarul de Garda has also been around for more than 20 years, and it remains a leading independent voice in the country, not just as a digital product, but also in print. So Ziarul de Garda is actually still printing and growing its print run. And Alina's team published a groundbreaking investigation into vote buying by Russian-influenced politicians last year, an investigation I'm proud to say that we just announced it's been shortlisted for a European Press Prize Investigative Award this year. So congratulations to Alina and her team for that. So welcome all.
Let me also add that also my colleague from Snoop, Ilie Roșu, is here, the editor-in-chief. He's on the front run.
So yeah, do tap any of these guys, including Ilie at the end, if you want to learn more about our landscapes. So I want to start with letting these guys talk about some recent reporting that has led to the ideas for this panel. So Alina, let's start with you. Tell us briefly about the investigation that you did into vote buying in Moldova, what that was about, and what happened as a result.
Thank you very much, and thank you guys for coming to be with us. We do always a major investigative story when something important happens in my country, and we got used to do something because we knew we have a rule in our newsroom. Russia never gets relaxed about Moldova. So the rule for us is we have never get relaxed as well. We had seen many movements that Russia plans to buy votes, to influence people, to pay them to vote against the pro-European candidates and any idea of Europe, and to vote for a pro-Russian candidate. So now we have interesting times when decisions are taken by Russia not only on the field, but they work a lot and very progressively on the digital area. So our reporters managed to go undercover. There were 2 reporters who penetrated some groups online where they had other names and other identity, and they managed to collect data and to become members of that paid network. And they collected data about how people are paid, for what people are paid, what kind of messages should people say, where should they go and protest against European direction of Republic of Moldova, how should they promote Russian ideology. We published a first investigative story just before the first round of elections, because you know presidential election might have 2 rounds. And everybody was shocked to see how huge this phenomena is. And even the Moscow network was really shocked, but we never announced that we have another reporter working undercover. So the interesting fact was that people in those digital groups were saying, be careful, there are journalists from Ziarul de Garda who recorded everything, so be careful how do you work, and be careful how do you communicate, because look what a journalist did. But nobody just suspected that there is another reporter recording everything. So just before the second tour, we published the next story, and we were waiting to publish the second story till the moment our reporter was paid, because when the reporter gets money, then we have all the proof. So after the first investigative story, police started a lot of actions. People started to make a lot of pressure on police. But anyway, that ring managed still to pay people, and they managed to pay our reporter. So it was everything proved. Messages, money, the ways the money circulates, the places they go, and all the instructions from Moscow to Chisinau to Moldova, how to vote against Europe.
How much did votes cost? How much did your reporter get?
There were lots of financial opportunities for our reporters. Because you are not paid only for the vote, you are paid also if you bring any of your friends, you are paid also if you go to any protest, you are paid also if you help any of your friends to become members of this ring. So you can really make a fortune if you work honestly. We got the money, but we declared publicly all the money, we filmed everything, how did we get, and we filmed the process, how we offered this money to police. Hopefully they do something much better for the society with those money if they never have enough.
Thank you, Alina. So, Victor, you uncovered for Snoop a similar network, but like a complicated digital network of marketing schemes that also were then fronts for serving disinformation. Can you tell us a little bit about those investigations and what do you think they mean for how this hybrid warfare is going?
Yeah, I was thinking I'm going to share you another story about a good opportunity to get dirty money from Russians, actually. Over the last 2 years, I've been following a native advertising company which is called Now. For years, they used to pay pretty impressive amounts of money to far-right publishers, conspiracy theories, super spreaders, that started more or less in 2016. Everything they started paying twice or 3 times more as Google does, for instance. And in 2022, I've got a nice financial leak from a TV station in Romania, which is insanely toxic. And I've been able to observe like very rounded, I mean, monthly rounded payments to this TV station. This kind of motivated me to get even more financial data, and I've been able to obtain through a source all the payments made by this company and now to all the Romanian companies. They were already in the spotlight in 2021 when one of their branches tried to bribe a French and a German influencer to trash the national vaccination programs. Radio Free Europe, Fact and Furious reported in 2021 about their close ties to Russia. For instance, their headquarters in Moscow were basically controlled by a lady that was in the PR department of United Russia, as you know, the political party of the Russian dictator. And yeah, it was really interesting to see right before the cancelled elections, all the far-right publishers paid for years with money from basically from Russia, but British pounds, suddenly endorsed the pro-Russian candidate. For years, they seemed irrelevant because they only published about astrology. Yeah, out of the blue, they were all like, do you know the pro-Russian candidate astrological sign? So, yeah. We've been also able to observe huge spikes in payments during the previous elections. For instance, the European elections back in 2019 or the presidential elections in 2016, hopefully. I need to get the infographics again. Yeah, that's my story about, and I sincerely hope you will check this kind of native advertising companies in your countries if you by any chance are living in Eastern Europe, because they're pumping like a lot of money in some publishers. You don't even know they're relevant until they just explode somehow online in a highly divisive moment, for instance.
One thing you said in your Snoop pieces that I think might be relevant to the audience here is that you said that these narratives were pumped into Romania, but it's almost like a training ground for taking those narratives then further into the EU.
Yeah, it's in the same way we have money laundering, right? We also have narrative laundering. For instance, in Romania, we don't have a Russian-speaking audience, but there is a Russian-speaking pretty impressive group in the Republic of Moldova. So we import a lot of toxic narratives and highly divisive topics in terms of you name it, like like the problems we have with the global cabal or the LGBT couples that will steal the street kids couples and so on. Very often they travel from the Republic of Moldova to Romania, and eventually they end up on the Romanian internet abroad. Like we have a huge diaspora, people living in Italy, in Spain, in the UK or Germany, and they're just like pushing this toxic content coming from Russia to Northern Republic of Moldova, then Romania, and it simply ends up in Berlin or London without being quoted a dodgy website like Russia Today or Sputnik, because that already triggers us.
So, Dan, I'm going to treat you as an expert here and someone with many years of experience. J.D. Vance said in Munich, right, like if digital advertising can shake a democracy, that democracy wasn't very strong to begin with. So I think one of the ideas that we had while talking about this panel is like, what the hell is wrong with Romania or Moldova that these things are happening? So what's your sense of where these countries are, so people can understand why these are the big stories around presidential elections in both countries?
I think money is shaping what's happening in Romania and Moldova these days, no matter where are coming from. In October, Romania was a pro-European country with some elections in front of it, having to choose between a prime minister accused of some corruption and a leader extremist without any chance to win the second term. That was George Simion. Overnight, we found that we have another winner coming almost from nowhere, or from TikTok. And afterwards, we found out that there were some influences from Russia, some influences from the political parties, and huge amounts of money spent and going to TikTok, to Facebook, or in places where the mainstream media wasn't present. Let's admit it, including myself, that we had a huge surprise seeing Mr. Georgescu winning overnight, over a week, the election. No polls had given him any chance, and he got around 30%. So money is shaping a big part of the media in Romania. I just checked before with my colleagues from Snoop that political parties spent around 46 million euros last year for propaganda. That's public money. At a certain point, the Romanian politicians figure out how to spend money without getting it from companies. It was considered that it's better and more transparent to have public money spent for political campaigns. So they voted to have just public money. And at some point, they said, we need more, so let's have more. 46 million euros in 1 year. That means 100 newsrooms, medium, small, investigative newsroom on a year. That's their budget. Think about what we could have done having, not with public money, but having 100 investigative newsrooms in one country. Probably would have been too much.
So this is one of Romania's very weird cautionary tales. So if you're thinking about public money for funding your newsrooms, please look at Romania first, because it's really a case where how this could go bad. And it's also a case why these are really big stories. You can imagine stories like this in your countries. They could turn an election like this, but Hotnews, even with its power, is still and Snoop is even smaller. They are the outliers in a media ecosystem that doesn't seem to care about this problem because they get money from the system.
Yeah, my colleagues from Snoop revealed that the Liberal Party paid for a huge political campaign on TikTok, which actually served to Mr. Georgescu, not to their own candidate, Mr. Duca. How do you explain that? He said, well, our campaign was hijacked. Oh, really? With a lot of money. And you should, let's say it very clear. Those millions of euros are not buying political advertising. They are buying content, non-transparent news, pure propaganda, which the public sees it as a pure news, or you don't know what you're seeing on your major TV stations because nothing is marked. So you don't know if it's the editorial right to present something, or it's just propaganda unmarked.
So I want you to talk a little bit about the impact that these stories had and how they were received by the public. So Alina, how did the public receive these stories? What was the impact, both positive and negative?
Well, we didn't expect that the impact will be so big, but actually our lesson, we learned this lesson very early. You may do a brilliant story, but if you don't have a community, a big community of readers who will, read this, will comment this, will resend it to friends and to other communities, then you may lose the story. In our case, we knew that the community will like this. And it went not only brilliantly fast through all social media, but we had seen something unique in my country. It was first time ever when our video investigative stories were shown entirely on most of the TV stations in the country, starting with the public TV station, but also the biggest, the most popular private TV stations. And I see colleagues from Journal TV here, they also published it. And then we got calls from Romanian public TV, they also put it. And then, of course, many other Romanian media published our story, and some international covering too. So the impact was that big that people started to make pressure on authorities, asking, what are you doing? Look how journalists did it. They showed everything, how money are coming from Moscow to Moldova, from which bank to which bank, from how they come from a bank in Moscow to a digital device of any citizen in Moldova. And we knew that police is working, but it was like police was shy. And we had seen that police finally I remember I made really a post on Facebook saying, we want to know what police is doing now. Maybe they work, maybe don't, And I think after that we had seen the first ever press conference explaining very well what they are doing, what are the steps and what they plan to do next. So the entire society was boiling in this, and we were really happy. Because when a journalist works, risking his life, what you want to do, that his job is used in the benefit of the society. The bad part was we received some threats, and I think for me as a manager, the most stressful moment was, and is for any media manager, the permanent question that I've heard hundreds of times those days. How do you make a safe space for those reporters? And I am afraid I never had 100%, I am not 100% sure that I am doing everything I can to keep those reporters safe, although I am doing everything I know and I learned everywhere. So altogether, I think the big success and the big support of the community helped us with the safety too, in a way. But it was not easy, and one of the voices called me and said, you didn't make, me, not me personally, but our newsroom, you didn't make Shore angry, you didn't make those corrupt angry, you made Putin angry, because Putin had a plan to win those elections in Moldova.
Thank you. Dan?
Shivering. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to turn to you because Hotnews has amplified Snoop investigations. You also do your own investigations. You push politicians on these issues and others. How's this experience with the public in a moment where, as you said, people are somewhere not where we are, they're looking in other places, their trust is not always there. So how's your relationship with the public been? What's their response? How do you feel your impact is?
Well, let's say that we joined Hotnews coming from Libertatea after Ringhia considered that betting industry is might be more important than the journalism. So we joined Hotnews last year with a team of 15 journalists together with those from Hotnews. And at that moment, Hotnews was the 16th website in Romanian media. Nowadays, it's on top 4 and top 3. And it almost tripled the audience at some point or double it. So the audience grew and exploded mainly from October, November, and it's still at a very high level. But another thing also grew in this period, hate speech. So the comments coming from the on the website exploded in huge numbers, and the hate, it's terrible. I mean, if you are an editor in the weekends, you have to moderate around 1,000, 2,000 comments. Most of them, probably 70%, are not published because they are simply hate. So, and you can see that all over the social media, where you post something or influencer are posting something, and suddenly hundreds of people start commenting like a pack of wolves.
And you're saying this is more than you knew 5 years ago,
Yeah.
or 10 years ago.
You know, last year here in Perugia, Maria Ressa was talking about the bad influence of the social media, Facebook, TikTok. After initially Facebook was something good. At that moment, hearing her, I said, well, it's happening, but it's still far. Well, starting from October, November, it's here. It's also in Romania, it's also in Moldova. It's very, very present, and it's unstoppable. I mean, one of my colleagues published last week about a new wave of propaganda on TikTok, this time with messages in Romanian, pro-Russia, pro-Putin, and anti-EU, and hundreds of fake accounts saying the same thing. So where is Russian propaganda? Just enter TikTok and you'll see it in huge waves.
Before I turn to Victor, I just want to ask you, Dan and Alina, because you both talked about this increasing level of hate, and maybe so as managers, what are you? Is there something new you're doing in how you're thinking about coverage or the safety of the team? Is that become an issue that maybe you were not thinking about a few years ago?
No. We were thinking at a certain moment where protest and the tension was very high. but let me just disclose something. Our two reporters from Hotnews have 21. They are 21, and another one is 20 years old.
Your political reporters,
Yeah.
yeah.
And they are very, very courageous. I mean, 3 weeks ago or 1 month ago, when there was a protest with violence, I didn't have to say them, go there and be careful. They said, we are going there and stay calm. We'll be watching ourselves, and they did. So I'm very proud of them. They are one of the best generation I have seen, in way better than us 20 years ago. So we're trying to tell them, just watch yourself and don't get wherever I wouldn't go.
And I think the reporters that went undercover, they're about 24, 25, yours too?
Yeah, one of them is very, very young, just like 1-2 years of experience in journalism. Another one is with more experience. But life is not easy for them, specifically in the era of hate on social media, because I had seen really last months how the hate from the digital sphere goes to the hate in the society. And our reporters were really, under a kind of verbal attacks during some protests. They were filming in the street. They really were heated by people saying, you bastards are financed by USAID, a criminal organization. So how did these people learn that we are financed by USAID? We never had a contract directly with USAID. But they had seen all this hate on social media, and then they come directly to you and address these violent words, and some of them try to attack you aggressively physically. And the problem is this phenomena develops much faster than the society, the good part of the society, how to say, learns how to defend freedom and democracy. Because if now you call police, police doesn't know what to do. Police doesn't know how to find these messages. Police doesn't know how to find who is behind this. And we got so many messages one of the messages was, hey, I'll cut your head. For me, it's a serious message. I have to call police and say there is a message of threat. And police says, maybe someone just made a joke. Okay, so do we wait till the joke becomes true? And then we take some measures. So the society, I say about Moldova, is behind the very fast developments from the digital to the real life, speaking about threats and hate speech.
Victor, I want you to tell the story of your interaction with, let's say, Romanian law enforcement, because we've seen polarization and the effects of hate. So you think, well, maybe there are other institutions there that can protect us. So, are they?
I kind of have mixed feelings regarding the Romanian law enforcement, because my relationship with two different law enforcement units, working for Snoop on this series on disinformation. For instance, I've approached one of these conspiracy theories funders to just confront him with the findings about his money laundering scheme and his visit to the Russian embassy in Bucharest, and he went crazy, like we'll find you all, we'll kill you all, and so on. And I was truly amazed by a prosecutor who opened a case on these threats. We obviously decided in the newsroom to publish the recordings, and the General Prosecution Office opened officially a proper case against him. On the other hand, 2 years ago, we just published this story on Balkan Insight. I was doing over the last years pretty often undercover jobs, and one of them, in the Romanian Orthodox Church and the British shoplifting gangs, and I've been a thief, a lawyer, and yeah, so many personas. But I also was a grain smuggler, because since the start of the Russian war in Ukraine, a huge flood of smuggled grain traveled through Romania to various destinations, and I acted as a grain smuggler, approaching a corrupt functionary who was used to authorize many of these transactions. The investigation is already published on OCCRP and their Romanian partner, RISE project. And apparently the undercover wasn't that good, because the guy thought, we assume he thought I'm a police officer or something like that. So he went to the police a few days later and submitted a complaint. Someone tried to bribe him. The police eventually identified me and kept me under surveillance for 2 months. We went full paranoia, because I was pretty trained in anti-surveillance and counter-surveillance, and I've been able to take photos to 4 out of 6 operatives, and they were so stupid. I was really sure they were not law enforcement, because they were very amateurs. So yeah, I was working on these stories for RISE projects regarding the Tate brothers, and OCCRP decided to relocate us out of Bucharest, me, my partner, and the kid, for a month before we managed to hit the publish button. And yeah, they kept us under surveillance, like with field work, but they wired up my phone for 2 months. Nowhere in the criminal case is mentioned that I'm a journalist. But the funny part is, like, they kept pinging my phone hourly just to locate me in Bucharest. But before the meetings with my sources, because I used to take photos of them, before the meetings I had with my sources, they pinged my phone in order to geolocate me, like, minute by minute. And just at the end of the trips, they shown up there. So yeah, there are good cops, bad cops, you know. So some of them in Romania are pretty dodgy. The last one was really nice, opening a case on these threats. So yeah, it's at least we don't get bored.
So before I turn it over to the audience, I'm assuming this great work that you're doing, uncovering all this corruption and all like vote buying and influencing, is probably making you lots of money too, right? Like, your newsrooms are doing great. So can we talk about money a little bit? Alina, how's it going?
You want to end it on the sad note?
Now I'll find something. We'll find something happier towards the end.
Well, investigative reporting doesn't bring money. It spends money. It is the most expensive kind of journalism. And I had to refuse during my professional life a lot of money. If I could count all those money that I refused, maybe I would be rich. But the fact is, we apply for grants everywhere we can, and we were so happy to get grants here and there. And that story, this beautiful story, was done from a grant from NED. It's an American organization, and you know, with investigative reporting, it is also difficult to find donors, because sometimes donors request that level of transparency, which is good, because these are their people money. And you have to tell the donor, what are you working on, what the story is about, how do you do this story. But when you do an investigative story like Victor does, you can't explain to everybody, sending emails to everywhere, telling, now we go undercover, we send 2 reporters there, they will be there that month and there another month. No. And then there are not so many donors who give you money with transparency at the end, because at the end, of course, we explain everything we had done. So it was a surprise to see how much Ned liked this story. And at the beginning of this year, we got these messages that US institutions cutted all financial support for media in my country, and my organization got a 40% hole in the salary budget. It was not a pleasant thing, it was not an easy thing. We had to do a lot of, I don't know, requests everywhere to try to not to fire the good journalists, but to keep them. But it is not about making money. It is just about covering cost of everything.
Thank you, Alina. Dan?
Well, I definitely agree with my colleague from the stage, because in my double position as a head of Hotnews, which is a company, I'm not talking about the money. No, I'm the editorial part, so it's state and church. But as a part of Snoop, yeah, it's hard to get money from the people. I mean, after 1 year, we have around 600 donors monthly, and we had the luck to have two mecenas at the beginning, at least for some years, but attracting money from people, even having success, because we had millions of readers, it's very hard. I mean, in a country, still poor country like Romania, it's very hard to convince people to give you money and to support you as a investigative journalist. Even though in these years we have seen cases of media outlets with success in doing that, our colleagues from Record. But it's a struggle.
So this is why I was saying in the beginning that thinking of Romania or Moldova as kind of okay is fragile. Romania was not necessarily a donor priority for many years, and that's partly, that also shows in where we are. And Moldova was in a bit a donor priority, but you can see what it means when that plug is pulled. It takes 40% out of your budget. So if anyone in the audience knows anyone, like, these are people to talk to. So we have about 7 minutes. Maybe if there's a couple of quick questions from the audience that we could take before we wrap up. So maybe those two there, if you can keep your hands up, so they, I think someone might have a mic. Thank you. So one there and then one in the back. Yeah. Go ahead.
Shall I go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
You were talking a bit about some of the cuts in funding from the United States. I was wondering, is there any sense that other countries, principally Russia, might take advantage of this and fill that vacuum in some way?
Thank you. Alina, you want to take that?
Russia took the great advantage of this, not only because American funds were cut, but at the moment I understood that I do not have how to cover 40% of salaries. I had actually to be explaining every day to the audience that we are not criminals and we didn't take criminal money, because Russia immediately started a huge campaign against us and other independent media, saying whoever had USAID money had criminal money and they did criminal things. So really it was worse than money. I am ready to work without money, but not to face this smear campaign against the best reporters in my country who really risk their life to save democracy, and then they, wherever they go, these really pro-Russian politicians say, I won't talk to you because you are from a criminal media. It is the worst ever could happen to us, and if I am really sad about, I am sad about all the society that couldn't explain well why we are doing the good job and why we are not criminals.
Thank you. Let's take one more. Go ahead.
Working? Hi. Thanks a lot. I'm from Ukraine, so I really appreciate your work. It rings home. But I had a question. I think the devil with Russian propaganda is that it taps onto real economic insecurities and things like U.S. imperialist agendas. So how do you reach those readers that are, affected by very practical things and maybe don't have time or wish to read a long investigative report? Thank you.
So maybe Alina could take this, but also Dan, because you also, the editor, the Hotnews also publishes, tries to be for everyone. So how do you reach the people that?
Doing our job. I mean, come on, it's not in Romania. You won't feel the Russian wind as hard as you are feeling in Moldova. So that's what the reason I'm probably more reserved in talking about the influences on the mainstream media.
Thank you very much for the question, and I have to say we have our obligation to explain what happens in Ukraine, and we do it every single day. We never stopped since the war started. But we are afraid of the war fatigue. You know, people do not want, they want to be happy. They don't want to read again about the war, and we have to be creative explaining them and keeping them reading this. And I am happy to say that being as a newspaper, we also have a newspaper, and everywhere or almost everywhere in the world, the newspaper circulation is going down, and this year we got 30% more people subscription to our newspaper, which is just a moment of happiness. But also on the web page, we are in top 10 among all web pages in the country, which is great. So it means we publish only very hard content about corruption, human rights, the war, but it means we know how to do this, and people still follow us and read us in bigger and bigger numbers.
Thank you. What I'll end with is a question for all of you. Maybe quickly, we were used to in these to take our cues from the West. So we have the stage here in Perugia, so let's do it the other way around. What do you think our colleagues, journalists in, let's say, the West of Moldova and Romania can learn from what's going on in these countries, in our fields right now? Victor, you want to go first?
Sorry, can you repeat?
What do you think our journalist colleagues in the West can learn from all what we've talked about today? What should they be thinking about?
I don't know. Usually, indeed, we are the one who are taking our light from the West. But yeah, if a few years ago I was planning to leave Romania, for instance, I don't feel like it's better in West with this higher and higher rise of far right, for instance, or the higher cost of living. I mean, what what Trump does is like, or Putin does, it's like it's for all of us. So it's not gonna be way better in London or in Berlin sooner or later. So yeah, it's not the best time of my life. I'm not that optimistic. So.
Alina?
Look, guys, Putin never got relaxed on former Soviet Union countries. He never got Moldova get out of this. And me as a journalist working for more than 30 years in journalism never could have an opportunity to get totally relaxed. I have to think about the security of my newsroom every single day, the security of my children every single day, the security of my country every single day. I have to think about the war in Ukraine every single day. And he will never stop. You know why? Because he is that bad. He only wants that something else is worse. Only in that situation he'll be a little better. So he'll make everything to be everywhere worse than in Russia. It is the only way he could escape. So please keep an eye, be relaxed if you are in EU, but not totally relaxed. Let's be friends. Thank you.
Thank you, Alina.